One um, assessment that we typically see when we're looking at dyslexia um, and reading issues is a RAN assessment. Now, RAN stands for Rapid Automatized Naming, and it is something that has quite a lot of research and evidence behind it. So, what is it? Let's dive into that. So, RAN tasks ask children to name a number of familiar pictures or letter things as quickly as possible. And it's, as I've had written down incorrectly in the last assessment slide video there, it is actually the RAN test that I was mentioning there is actually level B. So there are three key aspects to RAN. One is that the layout is a grid, and the items are read in the same way as reading in English, so left to right, top to bottom, and that mirrors the reading of connected text. So eye movements, attention, monitoring, cognitive processing, all of those good things. I have never seen a RAN assessment done in a language that doesn't go from left to right, up to down, but I would imagine maybe that they do use them differently there. But this is for English, or at least other languages that go in that same way. So that's the first key, is that it's mimicking that connected text experience. The other thing is that they have to be familiar items. So colors or familiar objects for young children who don't know their letter names. And note that we are actually naming letters here. We're not saying the sounds. Um, if they are old enough to know their letter names, then we do want to use that assessment because the validity is higher for the letters, obviously, because it's much more comparable to actually reading. So the second thing is that this is familiarity. It shouldn't be difficult to recall the names of these letters. And the third thing is that we want them to be named as quickly as possible. We're really assessing how quickly can you retrieve this information. So usually it's like how many can you do in a minute? And because the objects are familiar, there should be few errors. So think of RAN as isolated reading skills without the phonological awareness. How quickly and accurately can you identify, analyze, and recall the connected information? It's important to note that RAN and PA are separate skills and we need both of them to become readers. So, why do we care about this? Why do we care about RAN? So as I've said, there's a lot of research on RAN, and the faster the RAN, the stronger the reading ability. I think that probably tops out at some point. But if I think I maybe would rewrite that now. I would say extremely slow RAN would be an indicator of a potential difficulty with reading. Dyslexia. So we have this thing called the double deficit hypothesis for dyslexia. And so that's when we would assess a kid and they would have difficulties in both phonological awareness and in RAN. And this type of dyslexia is the most challenging dyslexia to try to support kids through to get them reading. So it's really important, again, to note that PA and RAN are separate skills. That's why it's a double deficit. So this is the assessment piece. So the good thing about RAN is that the kindergarten RAN ability is a really good predictor of later RAN ability and therefore reading ability. So it's got a good predictive validity to reading. And so we can use this as a red flag in kindergarten to see if a kid, if this is a kid we need to be paying close attention to for reading difficulties. So there is no threshold. There is no single cutoff that indicates that RAN is problematic. RAN is a flag, but it's not the problem itself, because what it is actually, it's a combination of skills and going on in the background. So you can't really have it cut off. And also, if you think about it, a 9th percentile child is very little different to a 10th percentile child. So a cutoff really doesn't make sense. But If you had a kid who was struggling to read despite knowing the phonics and who had the ninth percentile RAN, you might consider that to be useful and informative information, right? And then this is the really important piece here is we have done quite a lot of studies on RAN, but they haven't really found that it's improves with intervention. So this is something you kind of are born with, and no matter how many often you practice this with kids or try to move it, you can't really make that much of a difference with it. So, if somebody's selling you a really lovely and expensive RAN program, don't spend your money on it. Okay, so that's RAN in a nutshell.